followed by one of the worst plea bargaining deals in Canadian history. But before we look into details about the case, we have to remember, what is plea bargaining? Well, plea bargaining is when the defendant and a prosecutor agree on similar terms. Often the defendant will agree to plead guilty, and in return, the prosecutor will give some concession.
The jury will hear from Karla Homolka.
In July 1995, Paul Bernardo went on trial in Toronto for the abduction, rape, and murder of teenagers Leslie Mahaffey and Kristen French.
Videotapes said to depict chilling.
The prosecution's star witness, his former wife, Karla Homolka, already in prison for her part in those crimes and in the death of her sister.
It's all part of a deal she struck with the Crown in exchange for one thing: her testimony against Paul Bernardo.
It's quite simple. The plea bargaining in this case was ridiculous, as the detectives were unable to find enough evidence to give the Crown Attorney enough to convict both of them, or let alone one of them. So the Crown Attorney struck a controversial deal with Karla Homolka. However, key evidence about Karla Homolka's crimes were discovered after she struck a deal. In 1993, Bernardo was charged with 2 counts, each of first-degree murder, kidnapping, forcible confinement, and aggravated sexual assault, and 1 count of committing an indignity to a body. Homolka is only charged with 2 counts of manslaughter. Homolka strikes a controversial plea bargain and is convicted of manslaughter and sentenced to just 12 years in prison, where Karla Homolka, who struck that plea bargaining deal, agrees to testify against Bernardo. Videotaped evidence discovered after her agreement with the prosecution showed her active involvement in the girl's fate. In 1997, Bernardo's first lawyers are charged with obstruction, justice, and possession for not turning over tapes found in Bernardo's home. Homolka is released in 2005, legally changing her name. Do you think that's fair? In this particular case, justice was not provided, as Karla Homolka gets away with killing multiple people. After the newfound evidence that was submitted, Karla Homolka was not given the correct punishment, and it is not right or just that she was able to escape the correct punishment. Karla Homolka should have received a much greater punishment. Crimes such as being a serial killer should not be taken lightly. This also does not provide a correct punishment for the poor friends and families that were involved.
Water tap off completely. He'd hit me. If I didn't say the right thing, he'd hit me. He held knives to my throat. He told me I better watch my back. He said, always watch your back with me. Her feet were tied with that electrical cord that he had used to kill Leslie. And there was electrical cord around her neck.
In this case, the justice system was at fault, making it a very difficult choice at the wrong time, and they should have worked harder to make sure that more information was gathered before the time of the case and the plea bargaining. Because of these issues, many people will not be able to forgive the courts for making these mistakes that they have made. We have to look at this from the legal side and accept what has happened and understand that we will learn from our mistakes. However, this is a mistake that the courts can't afford to make again. In this particular case, justice was not provided, as Karla Homolka gets away with killing multiple people. After the newfound evidence that was submitted, Karla Homolka was not given the correct punishment, and it is not right or just that she was able to escape the correct punishment. Karla Homolka should have received a much greater punishment. Crimes such as being a serial killer should not be taken lightly. This also does not provide a correct punishment for the poor friends and families that were involved.
Homolka has been a regular fixture at Greaves Adventist Academy, a private Christian school.
We don't want her there. We don't want her in the school.
Lily is a concerned parent at the NDG school. She doesn't want her face shown. She says Homolka does more than just drop off and pick up her kids. She claims Homolka occasionally volunteers at the school. Several sources connected with the school say that on March 22nd, Homolka helped supervise a group of kindergarten students during a field trip to the Montreal Science Center.
How would you feel knowing that your child is interacting with a person who's a serial killer? It's not right.
Those same sources say Homolka has even been inside the school from time to time.
The solution I propose to prevent fewer issues from this happening would be revised plea bargaining. This could happen anywhere from 1 to 5 years after your case, especially for a major one like this. This is where newly entertained evidence can be presented to the court. It is the court's obligation, not a responsibility, for them to look at this evidence and revise their plea bargain, or even make sure they have the right person. Many families have been affected from cases like this. Friends, everybody's been affected. Even Canadian citizens till this day still talk about it. We have to make sure that this is the right solution for plea bargaining, especially for a case like this one. Case closed.